Super Smash Bros., it's the kind of game that I dreamed about when I was a kid. All of the Nintendo characters in one game together, hashing it out with fists, swords, bombs, guns, and pretty much anything else you can grab. The Smash Bros. Games are a once-in-generation event, and usually they're big system sellers for Nintendo, but the original game in the series had far more humble origins. Let's take a look at 10 facts about Super Smash Bros. Super Smash Bros. Seems like a really simple idea that probably thousands of Nintendo kids dreamed up long before it was ever made. But the game started out with no connection to the iconic cast of Nintendo characters that are in it. The game's director, Masahiro Sakurai, wanted to make a quirky fighting game, but originally used simple polygon clumps as characters to test out the game's engine, and then pitched the game to Nintendo as Dragon King the Fighting Game. Sakurai was concerned about low sales of fighting games so far on the Nintendo 64, such as Killer Instinct Gold, and came up with the idea of using Nintendo characters to boost consumer interest. Obviously, it worked. As I previously said, Sakurai already had the game partially completed before implementing Nintendo characters. But it didn't go the way you might think. You know, Sakurai goes to Nintendo and says, "Hey, how about using Nintendo characters?" And they're all like, "Brilliant!" Actually, Sakurai was so sure that they would absolutely hate the idea that he did all the work in secret, making sure that he could give them a balanced, playable demo to try out before he ever mentioned it. The original demo included Mario, Donkey Kong, Samus, and Fox McCloud. This could have been a disaster, but obviously, this gamble paid off. There were lots of things planned for Super Smash Bros. That didn't make it into the game. Obviously, this is true of most games, but what makes Super Smash Bros. Interesting is that these features didn't make it into the series in the first sequel, Super Smash Bros. Melee, but the second sequel, Super Smash Bros. Brawl. One major mechanic was final smash moves, some data for which is still found on the game's ROM. Another cut feature were two characters, Meta Knight and King DDD. Though the final smashes were left out for technical reasons, the two Kirby supporting characters were left out due to Sakurai not wanting to give the impression that he was filling up the game with his own creations, as he had also created Kirby. There were some minor changes made during the process of localizing Super Smash Bros. To American audiences, something that was originally not even planned until the game was a huge hit in Japan. The biggest obvious change was the sound effects. Nintendo changed the hitting effects to be more cartoonish to make the game seem less violent, and changed the sound of the beam saber item to be more generic and less like a lightsaber from Star Wars to avoid possible legal issues. While it was an obviously smart move to avoid even the possibility of any issues with George Lucas, the sound effects thing, it seems silly by comparison. But consider this. The sequels had more realistic sound effects, like the Japanese version of the first game, and they both received T ratings from the ESRB, while the original was rated E. Hell, Brawl was rated T despite the creation of an E10 Plus rating, so a little sound effect change can go a long way. The fighting polygons are simplified versions of the 12 playable characters, with some changes to the character models to make them more exaggerated. Using a game-altering device such as a Game Shark is the only way to play as them, though doing this is a novelty at best, as they are pretty awful, with almost no weight, floaty physics, and absolutely no special moves, and they cannot grab or throw. Almost all of the characters in Super Smash Bros. Use moves generally taken from games they had appeared in, just adapted for a fighting game. The Turd in the Punch Bowl? Captain Falcon. Up until now, Captain Falcon had only appeared in the F-Zero racing games, and although he ostensibly had a backstory as a bounty hunter, he had never appeared outside of his car in the original Super NES game and its Japan-only sequel, and in F-Zero X for the Nintendo 64, he had only appeared in still images. So where did his moveset come from? Why, from the generic characters from the game's original iteration, Dragon King the Fighting Game. While characters planned to appear in the game, such as Bowser, Peach, and the aforementioned King DDD and Meta Knight, appeared in the game's sequels as playable characters, It's somewhat interesting to learn that the Pokemon Meowth was originally supposed to be playable in Super Smash Bros. Meowth was cut due to time constraints. Though he did appear in the game as a possible Pokeball spawn, actually one of the more powerful ones, Meowth has yet to be playable in a sequel, instead appearing as either a trophy, a summon, or both. Will he appear in Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and Super Smash Bros. For 3DS? Perhaps. For a series known for its large amount of unlockables, it's kind of shocking how few there are in the original Super Smash Bros. There are the 4 secret characters, and a grand total of 1 stage, and that's it. However, there do exist in the game 3 stages that are in the game but can't be unlocked or played during normal gameplay, but can be accessed via cheat devices like a Game Shark. One is the unique stage shown during the game's tutorial. The other 2 are early beta versions of Kirby's stage left floating in the game's ROM. Out of the 4 unlockable characters, Jigglypuff, Luigi, Captain Falcon, and Ness, the easiest to get by far is Jigglypuff, who will challenge you after you beat the game with any character, on any difficulty, with any amount of stock. However, it is possible to do this, but also meet the criteria to unlock other characters. Let's say you first played with each character long enough to complete break the targets with each one, but you didn't beat the game. Then, with the last character, you beat the game, and you do it in under 20 minutes or less on normal difficulty or higher without using a continue. You would have met the unlock criteria for all 4 characters at once, but in this case, Luigi, Ness, and Captain Falcon will always take precedent. It's therefore possible for Jigglypuff to be the last character you unlock. Lastly, just some interesting tidbits. Mario and Donkey Kong are the only characters to originate from an arcade game. Samus is the only explicitly female character, though Jigglypuff is almost always referred to as female. Captain Falcon and Ness are the only characters to not have a stage from their series. Pikachu is the newest character, and also usually considered the best. Ness has only ever been in one non-Smash Bros. Game. Yoshi is the only character in the game to have a unique shield. And lastly, Jigglypuff is the only character to have a different name in Japan. She's referred to there as Purin.